In a year where Tobey Maguire swung onto the big screen for the first time in Spider-Man, and the only year that the New Year's glasses actually make sense symmetrically, Midway Studios released their fifth mainline game with Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. In today's video I will be playing and reviewing Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. This is my first playthrough, although I have followed the story of the Mortal Kombat universe from its beginning. I have not played all the games and wanted to revisit the series through its entirety. I wanted to make a play and review through the first 4 games including Mortal Kombat 1, 2, Ultimate, and 4. But because these games aren't very long, and I'm not reviewing the tower endings individually, I figured I would skip to the 3D era games. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was released in 2002 by Midway Studios for Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. This is the first MK title to be released exclusively for consoles with no release for arcade cabinets. The story mode for Deadly Alliance still includes the tower endings for each character, but is the first game in the franchise to introduce Conquest, its storyline game mode. Deadly Alliance also has the classic arcade mode that each character can run through for their tower endings, a versus mode for local multiplayer to whoop up on your friends, a practice mode returns to help nail down those sick combos, and finally the Crypt, making its first introduction to the series. Although bare bones, the Crypt added a great way to unlock concept art, characters themselves, secondary outfits for the fighters, and arenas among with other extras. Along with the character tower endings, Deadly Alliance's story mode is in Conquest. This is the first game to introduce this game mode. Conquest is bare bones. You pick a fighter and run through missions, typically 10 missions per character. Each mission seems to be a tutorial for said character. The first few missions are basic fighting buttons and progresses through the different fight styles, ultimately leading to a 3 out of 5 rounds mirror match with whatever character you're using. There are prompts before each mission describe where the fighter is in the world and ties their sub-story into the main story, so I like that part of it. I'm a sucker for story and nostalgia. The main story for Deadly Alliance is told through the opening cutscene where we see Quan Chi escaping the Nether Realm and stumble upon the Dragon Army. He needed the help from the Soul Sorcerer with a sick goatee, Shang Tsung. They go on a rampage killing off some of the biggest names from previous games. Shang sets up one of his classic Soul Nados to give to the undead army. As I was on the Select Your Fighter screen, I noticed half the roster was locked. I thought maybe if I finish all the fighter missions, it would unlock the rest, and boy, was I wrong. The locked characters are in the Crypt. To unlock, I would have to use the various coins I received from completing the missions and playing through the arcade mode. So once I figured this out, I played through the arcade once with Kung Lao. After getting my ass absolutely handed to me 6 times by a new character for the series, Moloch, I was able to barely get past him, fight Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, and finish Lao's arcade for his ending. I then searched Google for where these locked characters are because time and MK in game currency is finite and did not want to guess. So doing some unlocking and funky Crypt coins math, I was able to unlock everyone except Draftman. After finishing some more missions with the unlocked characters, I was able to have everyone unlocked to finish Conquest mode. The reward for finishing all missions is the characters Blaze and Mocap, which at the time of completion, it was a little bit of a letdown. Both characters have some of the same moves as the other fighters. I understand Mocap being a funny character put in by the developers, but it was a miss from me. Blaze is decent, but nothing too special. The gameplay for Deadly Alliance is the base fighting for every game that follows. It's familiar in a sense of button mapping, but different with the various fight styles implemented. Deadly Alliance introduces 3 different unique fighting styles per character, adding some depth to the attacks and combos. I played through an emulator, which is why you may see some blue lines between the letters. Not game-breaking, and I could probably fix it, but was excited to hop in and play. The game ran smooth as butter, and although maybe upscaled, also looked fantastic. I did have some trouble chaining combos together that may or may not have made me rage, but that was more on my skill level rather than the game itself. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance came out over 20 years ago, and I believe it held up pretty well. Graphics, arenas, and some pretty good ideas to further the story of Mortal Kombat. Definitely better than the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 1. It took me roughly 9 hours to complete the Conquest mode and do some crypt unlocks. This roster of fighters introduced some new characters like Li Mei, Natara, Mavado, and Frost. Brought back some fan favorites like Raiden, Katana, Sonya Blade, Jax, Cyrax, Sub-Zero, Reptile, Johnny Cage, and Scorpion. As a semi-Melina main, I was sad not to see her, and also Sector. The other new characters, Draftman and Shoutout, just didn't click with me. Overall, I rate Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance a 7.5 out of 10. Solid entry for the franchise, and looking forward to see where they go from here in the rest of the 3D era. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance visually holds up even 22 years later. The fighting arenas look great, character models look fantastic for the time it was released. This game feels like the beginning of how they would implement game modes going forward. Although the Conquest missions did seem to feel repetitive, it was a nice feature to get the player to use and learn each of the fighters. The story felt like the developers weren't scared to take chances, so I'll have to give it to them. I mean, they literally killed off Liu Kang, their top fighter from previous games. All in all, I'm glad I could experience this chapter in Mortal Kombat games.
I was the fool who brought him this power. Only I can destroy this threat, born of deception.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you enjoyed or disliked Deadly Alliance and who your favorite fighter is.